Good afternoon, everyone. Unfortunately, gender inequality is one of the biggest social problems in our society. The situation varies according to the social-economic status of the country in question. Although there are some countries where this problem isn't as sharp. In some, the social role of women is considered inferior to that of men. In the Geography of Gender project, we want to bring this theme out for being discussed. My name is Ariana, and these are my colleagues Catarina and Juliana. Today we are going to interview Almerinda Bento, a Portuguese woman that belongs to Feminism on the Move Association. Good afternoon, Almerinda Bento.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Have you been part of this association for a long time?
This association launched in July 2019, and I'm one of the founders of this association. It's a very young association, as you understand. Most of it has had the problem of pandemics during 2020, and that was really something that made a big difference because it was difficult for us to join. It was very difficult for us to do activities, and most of our work was online.
How did you start to identify yourself as a feminism on the move?
Can you repeat again, please?
Yes. How did you start to identify yourself as a feminism on the move?
Before 2019, I had already been in other associations working with other feminists and working with other issues. As you understand, I'm almost 70 years old, and I started joining the feminist ideas and the feminist activism after the 25th of April 1974. Okay, because we understood that there were many issues regarding the difference between men and women that the revolution was not looking at. After the 25th of April, most of the issues that were our fights were the right to work and other rights, but the society was not looking at women and men and their differences, and especially they didn't realize how discriminated women were in many ways. And so after the 25th of April, some organizations appeared, but most of them did not like to call themselves as feminists. Why? Because feminism and feminists have people don't like the word and the concept of feminism and feminists, and there is a wrong idea and opinion about that. We are not fighting against men. We are fighting for equality. We are fighting for balance. We are not fighting against men. It's not a struggle between men and women. No, it's quite a different thing. But for many people, feminism is the we know there is sexism and machismo, and for many people, feminism is as if it was machismo by women, and that's wrong. That's wrong. So so what I was saying was that some organizations appeared after the 25th of April, but not many of them used to say that they were feminists. Even today, in Portugal, perhaps only 2 or 3 organizations are call themselves as feminists. What were the main issues that these organizations put on the table as important issues? It was the problems, the reproductive rights, the right to how can I say it? And when I say reproductive rights, I'm talking about the right for an abortion in good conditions, and respecting the rights of women if they want or if they don't want to have a child, and when they want to have a child. The other question was the access to power, because, for instance, in Parliament, in the boards of direction of the enterprises, and so on and so forth, most of the people there were men, not women, and so one of our goals of our something that we really wanted was the right to parity. What does that mean? It is the balance, equal share of men and women in power positions, in parliament, and so on. So that was another very important of our struggles. Another of our fights was the right to the fight against poverty, because many women that are workers get lower incomes, lower wages than men. So, and the problem of poverty is a real issue that women have to fight against. There are many other questions that today's organizations have as important ones. The right to fight all kinds of discriminations, because there are many discriminations that women have, that women suffer. Gender discriminations, class discriminations, ethnic discriminations, age discriminations, disability discriminations, race, sexual orientation. So there are, and my association, Feministas in Movement, one of their goals is to fight these multiple discriminations, not only gender discriminations, but everything that women suffer as women, and that belong to all the society. When we talk about race, or about ethnicity, or about age, or about class, all those discriminations are very important if we want to seek a better world. Okay, so when you talk about our values, what are our values? Equality, freedom, autonomy, independence, non-discrimination, of course, empowerment, self-determination, and that's why we talk about intersectionality. What does that mean? When we are fighting, when today's feminists are fighting, they are fighting in different levels and in different issues. Do you understand what I mean? Okay, I'm not sure if I'm being clear, but that's what we want. We want to fight all forms of discrimination against women and girls. So all those gender discriminations are very important to be fought. Another thing we must fight is equal opportunities for women and for girls in an intersectional way. We also understand how important it is to fight for the rights of children and the prevention of violence. For instance, one of our activities as an association is to go to schools and give it's not lessons, it's talks, it's conversations when we talk about prevention of violence, namely young children of 14, 15, so teenagers who start having sexual relations and love relations with boys and girls, and when they start experiencing for the first time gender violence, and many times they don't even understand that their lovers, their boyfriends or girlfriends are not being friendly. They are starting using forms of violence. So it's very important in our organization to go to schools and talk to big classes and many classes talking about these issues, these very important issues. We also like to talk about the history of feminism, how the first suffragettes how difficult it was for them to fight for the right to vote and to fight for the right to education. For instance, the Portuguese feminists of the beginning of the 20th century, okay, after when monarchy ended and the republic started, those feminists, they were not suffragettes in Portugal, but those feminists, what did they want? They wanted every woman to have the right to vote, and they wanted every woman to have the right to go to school, because they understood that schools and education were the most important tools for them to be autonomous, independent, and happy. So when we go to schools, we also talk about these things, because I think it's very important for young teenagers to know, to have the memory, to know the history, to know how it was difficult to get and to reach the point we are living now, because we have made a very long way, a very long and difficult way, with many struggles, with many fights, with many, we were defeated and we won. So this was a path onwards and backwards. Do you understand? And it's very important for the young girls and boys nowadays to understand that uh, what they have reached was a difficult task, and they cannot lose these gains. They cannot lose these battles. They must go forward, because there are many things to go forward. Today we have very problems with the racism, with the fascist ideas that are uh, uh, putting all the struggles and all the gains in danger. They are in risk, and if uh, if young children know what we have uh, what we have done, what we have gained, it's important, because they can understand that there is already something that can that cannot be left apart or put aside. It's very important to use all those gains as things to go forward, not to go backward.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about your experience in this association and projects you have already participated in?
Yes. Most of my activity as a teacher and as a member of an organization, I have been in many schools doing what I have just told you, and it's very good. It's very good for me, even now that I'm retired. I'm already retired. I'm not a teacher any longer. It's very refreshing. It's very good for me to go to schools and talk about the violence, about rights, the rights of women, about what we have gained, what we have done. It's very important for me to talk about the history of women. So, because that that activity is very important for the children in schools, and it has got to do with democracy and with what I think is important for the children, not only the books and the disciplines, the subjects. There are many other things. I know that in Portugal we have some subjects that have got to do with this, with citizenship and the knowing the rights and knowing many things that have to do with the people. But I've also had the opportunity to be not with this organization, but I have already been in another organization where I was as a feminist. I was a member of a feminist network that was called World March of Women, Marcha Mundial das Mulheres. And in that World March of Women that started in Canada in 1998, some organizations that had been in Beijing in 1995. Beijing was in Beijing in 1995. There was a world conference where women and organizations gathered, and after 1995, some of those women and organizations that had been there thought that it was very important to build a world network of feminists and organizations that could, in 2000, or when the century and the millennium changed, in 2000, to build a very big march. It was the World March of Women, and the idea was to join all organizations from every country, every continent, and bring their differences and also what they had in common in a very big march. And we are in the year 2000, we are in 10,000 women from all over the world in New York. We sent several letters from thousands and thousands of women from many countries in the world. They were sent to the United Nations organization. I'm not sure, but I think that nowadays the man who is in charge of the ONU, of the United Nations organization, is the Portuguese. Oh my God, I forgot his name. You know. It's a shame. It's a shame. You know the name of the man. Oh, I'm so ashamed that I forgot it. But then it was, I think it was Kofi Annan, the Secretary General of the United Nations, and we sent them those letters. And the idea was, it was important that the big leaders of the world and the big leaders of the economic forums and so on, to know that two main problems joined every woman in the world. And those two main issues were violence and poverty, because we understood that violence and poverty were existed everywhere. Even in Sweden, a rich country, there is poverty and there is violence. And if we go to South Africa, the same. There is violence and there is poverty. And so those were the two big issues that gathered those women, the World March of Women. And we had meetings in the different parts of the world, and we are also in, we also gathered in international meetings. For instance, I was in Rwanda in 2004, in Kigali. In 2004, 10 years after the genocide, I was there in the 5th international meeting of the World March of Women, where there were women from Africa, from South Africa, from South America, from Europe, from North America, from Palestine, from India, from many countries, and all those activities were very important because they were a way to join women from different countries with different points of view, with different levels of their situation with regard to women's rights. And internet was our main tool together. Do you understand? Because every 5 years we joined in a country in an international meeting. Every year we had meetings, for instance, in Europe. The sisters who lived in South America did the same. But meanwhile, how did we meet? By the internet. The internet was, in fact, our big tool, our way to easily join and share our ideas. Okay.
How do you look at the social situation of women in Portugal?
Nowadays, we are living a very specific situation due to the pandemics. This week, we read in the newspapers recent studies about the situation on violence, for instance. Last year, for instance, there were 30 women that were killed by their husbands or by their boyfriends, and 30. It's a lot of women, and many children became orphans and lived that situation. They faced those situations of femicide. In 2000, I said last year. It's not last year. It was in 2019. Yes, it was in 2020. I'm sorry. In 2020, there were 30 women that were killed. But we know the organizations that work with the gender violence and even police and those authorities know that during the period of lockdown, many women could not ask for help because they were inside their houses with their aggressors, and so they were not able to call for help or to call a line that could help them, or go to a shelter for beaten women. So during the lockdown, there were not many women asking for help, calling for help. But after the lockdown, when they could leave their homes, many of them could report the violence they had been submitted to. So this study that was that we could read in the newspapers this week say that there were different situations, but after the lockdown, women could ask for help. We also know that in periods as this one that we are living, in a pandemic, situations of violence get worse. And also, we know that women that had never lived violent situations, for the first time, they felt they have problems, and I'm sorry.
It's okay, no problem.
Sorry. Sorry. So we know that problems regarding violence with the pandemics became worse. And besides that, other problem that is worrying us a lot is the problem of poverty, because many firms, many enterprises closed. They are not working anymore, and all those people and many women went back home and have no hope to find a job in the near future. So we are very worried about violence, about poverty, and also about all those rights that we have reached and that we have gained, and that in a situation as the one we are living now, where populist and reactionary ideas are coming more and more, are making an ideology that that is very, very bad for women's rights and for women. So one of the things that organizations that as ours work to promote equality, to promote rights, to promote the rights of women. So we have a very big task. We have the obligation. We have the obligation. We have the duty to try to help those women. We have to try to show these women that we exist, that they can ask for help, that they can call us, and we also we cannot. Pandemics cannot suppress democracy. The pandemics cannot suppress democracy. It cannot suppress the rights. And so our duty is to be present and try to help as much as possible.
This is the end of our interview. Thank you for making your time available. Talking about feminism is essential to achieve equality. These type of projects are very important to share the main idea of the feminism, which isn't a struggle just for women, as we talked before. As stated on the website of the Feminism on the Move Association, we must fight and work for an egalitarian and diverse society. And I think that with this type of conversation, with people like Almerinda Bento, we can expose the right idea of feminism. As you said, it's not a fight against men. It's a fight for achieve equality. And thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry when I forgot some words.
Don't worry. It's
okay.
Thank you
I
so
will
much.
end this record.